Today we're joined by Chris Trittabar. He's from Hazeltine, the venue for this year's Ryder Cup. Also with me is Lee Strutt from the Royal Automobile Club. Chris, thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate you've got an awful lot going on out there. So how are things coming along?
Really well. Yeah, I would say just about everything we could ask for has kind of gone as we would expect so far. And, knock on wood, that continues for the next 55 days or so.
The days are running away fast, I'm sure, for you.
Yeah, we're kind of in that range where you go. It's close. It seems like it's coming fast, and the days are getting close. But still, it's almost 2 months, which a lot can happen in 2 months too. So
okay, if we can just start off looking a little bit about your career and your background that's led you to this role. That's obviously, I would imagine, one of the biggest challenges so far in your career. Where did you start out? You started out through the university college system out there, or?
So I ended up going to the University of Minnesota here in Minneapolis, and environmental horticulture was the major that I had there. Worked through an internship at a club in St. Paul. Got an assistant job right out of school. Great learning experience. Sort of threw me into the deep end a little bit. I remember, I think you talk about challenge in career, and I think everything to this point, every part of my career has been an interesting challenge. And having that first job, the first time that I was really in charge of people and in charge of, making a team, sort of come together to manage a golf course, that was its own challenge. If you look around the world and people think about golf and they think about Minnesota, Hazeltine is really sort of the place that they think about. And the opportunity to look at going to a club like that was really something that was hard to turn down.
And you knew at that time that the Ryder Cup was coming, obviously.
And I tell people in all truthfulness that whether or not the Ryder Cup was coming to Hazeltine, the job still would have interested me, but it certainly had added a different element to it.
Mentioning the Ryder Cup there then, Chris, has it had much of an impact on the course yet and the membership yet in terms of the playing conditions there?
Today is actually the first day that it's really going to start to have an impact on the membership, and they're going to play from beginning today when the first tee time. We've been closed for aerification for 2 days, and the first tee time goes out at noon today. They're going to play from a small mat. Over there, you golfers and turf people would probably be familiar with it. I know St. Andrews uses it. I'm sure there's some other places that are open in the winter that use them as well. And we're going to use them for the same reason, just to stop the divot accumulation, I guess, and get the fairways to heal up so that by the time we do get to the end of September and we get to the Ryder Cup, that fairways have essentially healed completely.
How have you gone around identifying, how many people you need and the machinery? And have there been any restrictions that, most people probably think it's an open checkbook and off you go. So sure. How have you gone about identifying your needs?
That really goes back to, I remember sitting at home. I did not come over to Glen Eagles for the Ryder Cup in 2014, but I sat at home and I got up at whatever hour it was that came on TV at home. My alarm went off and I got up and I sat there with my notebook, and I remember just thinking about, looking at my watch and thinking about timing of matches and where different matches were at different times, and starting to write down and jot down the ideas that would eventually become what we're going to implement in a few short days. So that included, how many people I thought we'd need, what types of equipment we'd need, how to sort of set up the maintenance of the course and do it in the most efficient manner. So that really started September of 2014, about 2 years ago.
You've got a staff normally of something like 45 through the peak summer period for you guys. And that grows substantially, I guess, for the Ryder Cup, including volunteers, which I think this chap is coming out to do.
Yeah.
What impact is that going to have on your staffing numbers then?
Yeah, so we're going to add about 100 people the week of the event. And we have a few individuals like Lee and Steve Chappell from Glen Eagles who are going to come over actually the week before the event and just be here. I think it's, in our sense, it's having extra help for the week before. In their sense, it's probably a little bit of that, but it's also just taking in as much as you possibly can, which I think is great. So yeah, it'll be 100 or so extra volunteers that we'll have. So our numbers each morning when we hit the course will be somewhere around 120 to 125. In addition to individuals like Lee and Steve. We've got another 30 or so from around the world that will be helping us, and then 60 to 70 individuals here from Minnesota that are part of the Minnesota Superintendents Association that will be here helping us that week.
So with the golf course coming online and we're getting closer to the tournament, do you use any methods to assess the performance of the golf course? Or, I mean, how do you go about your weekly guide to making sure that the golf course is going to peak for the week of the event?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think there's a couple different ways that I've looked at it. So one would be I've taken the opportunity to visit a number of major championships over the last few years. I went to the PGA at Valhalla in Louisville in 2014. I went to the PGA at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin last year. I was at the Masters this spring, and then again at the U.S. Open in June. And getting to be there and to see the operations and to, in some cases, walk inside the ropes on those surfaces, that gives me a good visual of, what does a course look like during a major championship, and what are the standards, what should it feel like, what should it look like, what do you want it to be like? So that becomes sort of a gauge, if you will, into how does Hazeltine look right now? How do we want it to look at that time? And so I use that, and then then it's just using what I've learned over the last 3+ years of managing this course and knowing what happens to it when we get to September, knowing what August is like, knowing how long I think it takes a divot to heal. That was part of putting into place this idea of using the mats in August, and then we're going to be closed starting September 6th for 3 weeks. Knowing that in September, the growing conditions here in Minnesota are just spectacular. The soil temps are warm, the nights are cooler, the humidity is lower, and the turf just grows and heals and looks fantastic.